Hello and welcome to this video where we are going to talk about the built-in function print. So Jupyter notebooks, they are based on IPython, and IPython is usually not really giving you an output, but when you execute a cell, you get sometimes an output. An example is shown here. We have one cell with 4 strings that are stacked on top of each other, and the last standalone value, standalone means we don't have a variable association here, is going to be outputted. So in this case, it would be text 4. But we don't have really control over what is really going to be printed. And if you are not using IPython, and usually when you have software developing, you are not going with IPython, you have the ordinary Python interpreter, this is not going to be outputted at all. So we want to have full control over what is going to be outputted, and we also want to format this output and have full control here. And this is where the built-in function print is coming in. It helps you to output it in the way you want to show it for the end user, but also for you. What are built-in functions? Again, built-in means it's always there. It's baked into the Python, in the Python base code, and you don't need to import a module or something. That is a topic for later. And let's have a look in the next slides how to use the built-in function print. So you can pass an argument like a string in this case, actually the F string, where that is actually introduced in the last video, and you can simply pass something to a print command. In this case, again, it's a string and the output is something like this. We saw in the last video how to format a number to not have all the digits after the decimal point, but just how much you are specifying. In this case, we have .2f, that means 2 digits after the decimal point in floating point representation. But you can also pass a floating point number here, and the result is similar. We are actually just printing or outputting the number. You can also pass 2 arguments, and always if you pass 2 arguments, no matter which data type, what is actually going to happen is they are concatenated to each other, and there is in the middle placed a space. So let's have a look at the output. You can see that there is a space between these 2 things, and also you can concatenate elements of different data types. In this case, we have an integer and a string mixed together. Again, both are converted to a string, concatenated, and there is a space in between. We can also have an arbitrary number of inputs. In this case, we have 4 arguments. They are, again, converted to a string, concatenated, and with a space in between. So let's have a look on escaping. What does escaping means? Print allows us not only to print text, but also to control the output in a more relevant way than just having text. We can have for example, a new line, and for this we need to have a \n. \n is an important thing because it's escaping from the text, and you show the print command, okay, something is going to happen here, we have a specific command. And I'm going to show you a command here that is, I guess, the most important. It's the command to have a new line. \n new line, and after the \n the text goes on. So in this case, we simply have a \n before the number. This means, hey, have a new line before the number. And consider that 2 print commands are usually by default ending with a new line. So in this case, we actually have this. There is part 1, new line. You can't see that we have the new line command here. It's there by default, and then part 2 is in a new line. So if you want to control this, we need to override a variable in that function, and we can do it so by specifying the variable that is called end. That's something that the developers of the print function wrote for you, and if you are overwriting this, there won't be a new line because by default end is a \n new line, and in this case you're overwriting it, so you will have everything in one line. If you are confused now by this second argument where we specify the variable name, this will be explained in more detail in one of the following videos. So let's open the Jupyter Notebook and let's look at some examples here. So we have a variable like this and another variable like this. So first of all, let's just verify that the IPython notebook is only executing the last standalone value. And also see that we have no output here when making the variable assignment. This is how the output in Jupyter Notebooks or in in IPython works. So let's come up with print. And here we can have both values printed. And again, you can also come up with a arbitrary number of input arguments. Let's also mix floats with integers and with strings here. All of this works. So also the other data types that we are going to learn later about, they can be printed with the print command, and you can mix them up. Again, if you have multiple arguments, they are converted to strings and then concatenated to each other, and then there is a space put in between. So let's have a look at the end command or end that is by default, the end variable that is by default a /n. So in this case, we actually have just one line and then the other, and this is the default value, so we can even leave it out as it is default, it will still be there, so the same output appears. We have print and then a new line. So what if we manipulate that variable? So we have something like, I don't know, minus new line, then you can see this ends with a minus and then there is a new line. We can also have this in one print command. Let's do that in a new cell. This one is actually the exact same thing as this one, right? So we can also have the new line command here and then write ABC1. And this also leads to a new line. There's also something like tab stops. If you want to make a tab, also this is possible. So let's manipulate the end /n again to have everything in one line. This is also possible like this. So this is it for this video. In the next video, we are going to learn about a very important data type called list and tuples. So stay tuned.